Hey everybody, it's Golmadex, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and Edge of Eternities is finally out on Arena. This will be my very first Premier Draft on my personal account. The only experience I have with the set so far is what I've played during the Early Access event, so I'm still very new to the set, but I'm excited to get some more practice in before we have our first competitive event next weekend. That'll be the first Arena Direct for Edge of Eternities, but that whole spiel out of the way, let's check out our pack 1 here and see what we can scoop up. We've got some great mono-colored removal spells like Grav Kill and Cut Propulsion. These would be some of the most open and flexible ways to start the draft. Every deck is going to enjoy having access to some good, efficient removal spells like that. And they're mono-colored cards to fit into multiple different strategies, but I do think Servandum is quite a powerful card. Could be worth going for the dual colored rare right off the bat. So we'll try her out for the first time. This is a 2-mana 2/2 Vigilance Menace. Whenever another creature control dies or is put into exile, you get a +1/+1 counter on them and gain a life. And then when they die, if they have power 4 or greater, you destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Very strong abilities on that. Pick number 2, we have All Fate's Stalker, which is a really powerful and flexible card. You can cast it just for 4 mana for a 2/3 as a removal spell, exiling your opponent's best non-assassin creature until they deal with the Stalker. But alternatively, you can do some fancy things by warping this in with that alternate cost. So if you warp it in, it is going to exile itself during your end step, and then you can recast it from exile later. But the fact that this exiles itself when warped is actually a plus side if you want to exile your own creature with this, because then you can warp this on your own creature that has a good enter the battlefield effect, and then this will leave the battlefield and bring that card back during your end step to trigger the enter effect again. Also, if you warp somebody else, their warp trigger is going to say that they're going to go to exile at the end of your turn and just stay there until you cast them. But if you exile somebody else that has warp with this warp, then they'll come back permanently, if that makes any sense. It's a cool little interaction there. For pick 3, we have 2 really nice removal spells. Grav Kill is certainly the better removal spell than Banishing Light, but Banishing Light is in the color that we're deeper in because we have that All Fate's Stalker as well. So this is a bit of an interesting pick here. I think I'm probably going to draft really simply here and try really hard to stay just glued to specifically black-white, so I will take the card that's just better in terms of raw power, but I could certainly see the argument there, especially later on during the set, to take the Banishing Light to get a little bit less glued to a specific 2-color pair, just have one main primary color for now. Pick 4, we have this Exosuit Savior. This is a 3-mana 2/2 flyer. When it enters, you can return up to 1 other permanent you control to its owner's hand. So if you have anything with good enter effects, that's pretty nice. Or we just have another Grav Kill. And I'm just going to go for another Grav Kill here. Pick number 5. A lot of Shocklands being opened up in this draft pod, which would be pretty sweet if I were drafting in paper. I would rare draft the heck out of these. 3-mana 2/4 Vigilance. If you've cast 2 or more spells this turn, it's a 4/4 Vigilance for 3. That's pretty absurd stat line. Filler little draw spell. Flyer that replaces itself when it dies. These creatures seem fine. I'm not super excited about the card draw. This will be our very first pick that I'm not super hype about. I think all of our other picks so far have been great cards. I'll go for the Monoist, try to get a good curve of cheap creatures, also expendable creatures that were okay with dying consistently to trigger Servandum's ability. So the Monoist seems like a pretty solid creature for anything that's going to sacrifice it or care about when it dies. Now we can go ahead and get our first Banishing Light, pick 6. Loaded on removal here. We're only 1 pack in and we have 2 Grav Kill, Banishing Light, and All Fate's Stalker. So a great start in that direction. I'll go for a Virus Beetle on this one. Another good expendable creature that we can sacrifice or chump block with to trigger anything like Servandum, and just reasonable effect by itself. Pick number 8, no black or white in this pack. That's certainly a little sad. 1, 2, 3, 4 cards deep into black and only 2 into white. One of each. Any cards here that'd be specifically good with the black? Like good for a black, red, or a green black deck? I guess sort of Thawbringer and sort of the Pangolin. Theoretically, Pull Through the Weft could be strong with a lot of self-mill, but I have not seen it pop off once yet. I just don't think there's a whole ton of self-mill for the Golgari decks. 9, I guess I'm just taking more red. Black-red artifacts as a backup. Sure. I do think the green spell was the best card in that pack, but we're already going a little deeper into red as our backup color here. What does this do? So, +3/+1. If you get a Void trigger, this equips for free. This might actually be decent. I don't think it's particularly hard to get Void triggers, because Void happens when anybody loses a permanent. Doesn't necessarily have to be off of your board or your opponent's board. It can be either. And it also works with warping stuff, and we have at least one warper. Pack 2, pick 1. What have we here? I might be bouncing over to red, honestly. I mean, this Banishing Light was pretty late, but white did kind of completely dry up after that. So Hard Light Containment only works if we have an artifact on our board, but if we do, it's a really efficient removal spell. There's a Graveyard Recursion effect that's pretty fun. Filler removal, or a pretty great red uncommon. I'm speculating towards red here. I'll take the Terror Pact Intimidator. I've been very impressed by this card. Usually it's just a 2-mana 4/3, but just a 2-mana 4/3 is pretty incredible. 4/3 for only 2 mana is just a huge, huge, huge stat line. And if they give you the Lander tokens, this card's completely absurd. 3 for 1 value. You get an Intimidator and 2 Rampant Growths. Pack 2, pick 2. Tenuk, Steadfast Second. Don't actually think this ability is all that powerful, but it's early enough in the draft that we can try to draft around this and hope that we get some big 8-9 mana artifacts to warp in and bash. I think that the Sunstar Expansionist is honestly probably just more consistently good, and it leaves us open to potentially still playing our other rare of Servandum if white doesn't get completely cut here. Pick 3. Hole Carver is a nice way to hedge our bets here between our black-red or our black-white deck. Pick 4. Filler white removal spell, solid black creature, and some real decent looking red uncommons. I mean, I don't think anything we've taken in red is that exciting outside of Intimidator. I mean, I do like the Landseeker too. Kind of want to just hedge my bets again and take the Monoist here that we can play no matter what. Yeah, I'll grab the Monoist here. Pick 5, okay. Pick 5 is second All Faith Stalker. I'll lock in on the black-white deck then. There is not a lot of fixing in the set. The fixing that is in the set is Lander tokens. That's basically it. There's technically a bonus sheet of those special-looking lands that we saw earlier. But those lands are in like 1 out of every 8 packs. So it's really just Lander tokens when it comes to fixing. Good lord. Pick 7, Banishing Light. So we're just going to be black-white, all removal, all day long. We just need 7 more playables. Not the most synergistic deck in the universe, just looks like a good deck in terms of raw power level. But I'm down for it. How much removal do we really want? I don't think we are going to have an aggressive enough curve. Certainly not enough creatures, I think, for the +2/+0 to everybody to be that exciting. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I only have 10 right now. No real token production or anything. Some +1/+1 synergy cards flying around, but we have not found much ways to put +1/+1 counters on our cards. Did see a little bit of those commons earlier, like the 2-mana 1/1 puts a +1/+1 counter on itself and then moves that counter around when it dies. So there were some options, but we didn't end up taking them, so we don't really have any +1/+1 counter stuff going on here. I have enough removal, I'm not going to embrace Oblivion, so we'll just take a flyer, an Exosuit Savior, and it does have synergy with Banishing Light. We've got 2 copies of that. If we Banishing Light a token off of our opponent's board, then when we draw the Exosuit Savior, it's like drawing a second Banishing Light, which is very powerful. Pack 3, pick 2. Certainly like the 2 mana plays, the Starfighter Pilot or the Virus Beetle. It'd be real annoying and take a Virus Beetle. It's pretty nasty with our All Fate Stalker. And our Exosuit Savior, actually. So a couple pretty gnarly synergies for that card. Pack 3, pick 3. Much more filler removal out of this pack is pretty much all that we see. Seam Rip would be fun in best of 3 draft. I don't know that this quite gets there in best of 1. I mean, if we had like 2 or 3 Exosuit Saviors, it'd probably be worth running even in best of 1, but we have so much removal and just like the one way to bounce it anyway. I'm just gonna pass on that, I think. Pick 4, there's Vote Out for more removal, or Beamsaw Prospector. I am going to be just absolutely hyper annoying here and take a Vote Out. I think that's a super efficient removal spell with the ability to convoke your creatures to help cast it for cheap. I've actually been pretty impressed by the auxiliary boosters when this has been played against me, so I don't mind this at the top of our curve. 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer, and then for 3 mana you can move this around and give other things +1/+2 in flying. And it does work with our Exosuit Savior, although we're really only going to have the 1 copy of that at this rate. Pick number 6. One more filler top-end creature, get some +1/+1 counters on the board early, looks fine. Or a lifelinker here at 3. Either of those look fine. I'll take another filler top-end creature. I think that's what I'm missing the most. Hey, another Virus Beetle. Depressurize actually a lot more impressive than it looks. It does kill a lot of stuff. But I have a lot of removal. And I think I have a lot of great ways to use this Virus Beetle, so I'm going to take another Virus Beetle. Pick 8. Don't think I'll be toying around with any of this, but maybe an Embrace Oblivion. And that's probably how things are going to go for the rest of this draft. Just put a bunch of stuff in the sideboard, edit the deck a tiny bit, and get into that gameplay. Okay, we wield a Beamsaw Prospector. That's actually quite nice. That's a 2-drop I do not mind running. Dying into a Lander token for later. If nothing else, the Lander token can be sacrificed to make sure all of our Void cards are active on a future turn. And I am going to want to try out as many like different cards as possible right now. So I'm probably going to try this Blade. Even though it looks a little awkward. So helping it out with the Void seems decent. Also, I think a 1-of draw spell looks decent in a deck with a bunch of 1-for-1 removal like this. So I'm just going to cut 4 creatures out of here. We're at 20 creatures right now, so we'll still be at 16, which is plenty. Try our Void equipment, Void draw spell, and a bunch of removal. I don't think we're the best at double spelling. I mean, I'm going to have a lot of 2-mana spells, but outside of that, not super good at it. I mean, I guess there's warping shenanigans going on too. I might try one of these. For variety's sake, try as many different cards as possible. Maybe lower 1 Prospector out. Again, going for variety. Starport Security is more often than not going to be 4 mana to activate the ability, which is not very efficient. So I can see an argument to cut that. But I'm definitely keeping Exosuit Savior with triple Virus Beetle. The Monoists for flying threats. The Stalkers, and because I'm keeping the Stalkers, I really want to keep these random big warp creatures. So maybe we get to pull off the little Wombo combo. Super excited about the Breacher in this deck either, as there's not much creature token production. It's all just 1-for-1 creatures. No cards in this deck are going to be casting, and like I make 2 creatures immediately, so that I have a wide board for that. Okay, so right off the bat, for variety's sake, trying out as many different cards as possible. I'm going to cut one of these Zealots. And then maybe one of the Prospectors, but then I get to the point where I have to cut something. That's my only copy. Because there's no world where I will be cutting any of our removal, nor cutting any of our Virus Beetles. I guess I could cut one Monoist, but I feel like this card's probably pretty solid in here. But I guess that would be a potential cut for variety's sake as well. I'm not going to do it. I think we've got a good chunk of solid removal. Not a lot of +1/+1 counters. I'm going to cut the security here. We've got like a couple. There's like literally a couple. There's one Enhancer that can put +1/+1 counters on the board. One Servandum that puts counters on itself. If I end up keeping the Breacher, then there's 3 +1/+1 counter cards. But still, not much. Not much for reducing the cost of that ability. I definitely want to keep Prospector in. And then I think I'd rather try the Zealot than the Breacher in this deck, because with 2 All-Fate Stalkers, I could definitely see turns in the late game where if I draw one of these with any of these other 2 Warpers, I double spell that way, and that's pretty cute. Plus just enough random 2-mana Warp stuff and 2-mana creatures in general. I could see doing one of those and then a 3-drop on turn 5, or just playing 2 2-drops on turn 4. All of that stuff works as well. So, yeah, it looks like a pretty fun little black-white double spell, all removal kind of deck. Not all removal. This is not the all removal control deck like we could see maybe in Grixis and Final Fantasy, but definitely the aggro version of all removal, voided up all day long stuff. Looks pretty cool. Pretty excited to see how this does. So without further ado, let's hop into the gameplay. Alright, here we are on the play for game number 1, and that is the annoying little deck we drafted right there. We've got turn 2 Virus Beetle followed by turn 3 Exosuit Savior to pick up the Virus Beetle and have our opponent discard another card, and we've even got a second copy of Virus Beetle in our hand, so we're going to be eating away at our opponent's hand here. There's the Terra Pact Intimidator, gets your 4/3. Target opponent may have them create 2 landers. If they don't, put 2 counters. So I decline to let them make the landers. Target can create 2 landers. Decline. Cool. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and just play another Virus Beetle and the Death Toucher to hold off this 4/3 from ripping my face apart. And we'll save the Exosuit Savior play for another turn. Beamsaw Prospector's the draw. Alright, well, here's Savior. Pick up a Virus Beetle and be rude. Now we start hitting for 2 a turn. Snap block. Get the 4/3 out of here. Still have a Grav Kill for the next large threat. And a Fungal Colossus is pretty large. Don't have the mana to Grav Kill yet anyway, though. I am not going to attempt to triple block. That'll fall flat to any instant speed removal or combat tricks and end up being pretty bad for me, so I'm probably just going to start chumping every turn. At 20 life, it's pretty reasonable to just take some 5 damage chunks, but when we have extremely expendable creatures out because I've drawn all 3 Virus Beetles, it's pretty safe to go for the chumps here. There's a 5-3 as well. So that 5-3 I'll certainly try to double block. We are really missing land drops here, so I kind of think I have to play Expansionist, which is a little bit awkward. Because it does mean if our opponent draws a land, and they have like a 3-drop and a 2-drop in their hand, they could empty their land and we get no more Virus Beetle value. Also means our Blade of the Swarm block is worse. We're trading a 2-3 and a 1-1 instead of a 2-1 with a death trigger and a 1-1 into the Blade, but it's still certainly worth the block. Unless they do that, and then I can't kill it anyway. But I can chump the 6. Now we hit the land. So I can grab kill the Colossus or set up the double block for the Blade of the Swarm. I want to keep eating my opponent's hand here, so I will set up the double block and see if they have yet another removal or combat trick style spell. Should be pretty difficult after another Virus Beetle. But alas, they do! Yet another removal spell has arrived. If I take 10 here, I have 3 power on board to double block the Blade of the Swarm if I go grab kill the Colossus. That was painful. Hit the land for the Peregrine Beckoner now. I think the removal spell is still the better play for now. It's safer against them having a bajillionth removal spell, which feels likely. Well, not likely, but feels possible. Because then I would double block there and die. I would be forced into a very bad block if they top decked a removal spell that turn. I get this card stat line mixed up every time. I always think this thing's a 5-4, but it is a 4-5. Basically the same thing on this board against the Blade. But interesting to note. I feel like I hit them hard in the sky here. If they removal spell the Beckoner, I do chump. And it's pretty bad for me. But I need to try to give them as few top decks as possible to hit another threat. And this is by far the best way to do that. Now I can send in 4 damage a turn and have the double block ready unless they hit removal. They need double removal to kill me, otherwise I still have a chump. And I can double activate landers. Bit of flood here for our opponent. Which is good for us. Live totals have evened. We're at 5, they're at 6. I die to instant speed removal if I do this. But otherwise they're forced into this block and they take 3 and they're dead next turn. I think I just go for that. Get the 2-turn kill. Galactic Wayfarer. So it is no longer the 2-turn kill. They have the blocker for Virus Beetle. And now they don't. Exile that, hit for 3, and that is game. We start this format off 1-0. Alright, here we are on the play for game number 2. Mono-colored hand, I have turn 3 Zealot and a Banishing Light backup. Even if I hit a swamp, it's not super strong, and if I don't, it's very bad. Feels not worth the risk. Let's go to 6 here. A little better. It's got both of our colors. Still has plays starting on turn 3. this. Well, there you go. Now it's way better. Turn 4, I can Stalker the Virus Beetle, plus play any other 2-drop if I draw one. And that'll get the Zealot hitting hard. Galactic Wayfarer from our opponent. Could just grab kill that. So I have Stalker for more removal, and this sets up again the warp play if I draw any spell at 3 or less mana. So Pilot, not Assassin. Good. Okay. Rip the hand away here. Double spell for the Zealot. Jam. Next turn they get to go land plus lander, which will draw them a card with Tanook, which is pretty good. Yep, draw the card. Now they're at 3 cards in hand again. And then, uh-oh, scary rare. Get a lander token where they sack an artifact, deal 2 to an opponent. Okay. I am doing exceptionally at drawing lands today. A lot more concerned about them drawing extra cards than dealing damage to us right now. So we're going to have to exile Tanook. But I'm going to have to draw something, because currently I hit them for 3. Sack a Virus Beetle to Lightning Bolt the face. It's worth it. I'll sack Virus Beetle for 3 damage. But we do really need some action here. I need to keep playing my lands, because we could draw our Draw 2 spell. If I keep a Swamp in my hand and then I draw the Draw 2, if I draw a 4 mana spell off of this, I wouldn't have been able to play, you know, this Swamp plus, like, a 4 mana spell plus the Swamp that I draw off of this. Can't play 2 lands in 1 turn. I can do this post-combat and have them lose the 2. Does feel pretty dang huge. The issue is that I could draw something that's relevant pre-combat, like a removal spell, and that would help me be a lot safer against like a combat trick to try to eat my Stalker here. I think I have to post-combat this, though. Just having our opponent lose an extra 2 life is kind of a big deal with them at 9. Also, I guess it could have let us double spell with the Zealot. There's that. Yeah, that ended up awkward. Nothing was voided. So instead, if I got a double spell, I could have just hit a little harder. Guess I probably should have assumed they were not going to kill Virus Beetle there. Well, I don't know. I think in most sets it would have been right to kill Virus Beetle there, but our opponent played it really well in not triggering Void. Just take 1 extra point of damage to permanently get something off the board is usually the better play, but not really in this set. God, Nebula Dragon is such a beating. That card has just been an MVP at stabilizing boards against anything I've played aggressively. I had Nikolai Bolas use that against me in a red-black deck, and that was the one card that just won the game with how stable it got them, and it looks like it's going to do similar things here. Don't see any attacks, even if I exile it, because they got Tanook back off of the removal spell it provided. So I think I'm really, really not having a good day wherever I target this. Either they're threatening to counterattack, kill me very quickly, or just draw a million cards off Tanook again. Yeah, it was such a stabilizer here. Just gonna hit the card draw engine, because the card draw engine is also ripping away at my life total without having to attack. At least Nebula Dragon has to attack for them to pressure me here. I don't feel like aggro's super good in this set, I have to say. There's so much incredible cheap removal. I've really felt it in both of the first two games. And then like 2-for-1 stabilizers like this. And good card drawn ramp for green. But, I mean, I've also gotten pretty flooded. Until they cracked that lander, I had cracked none and still had more lands than them. Alright, that'll do it. Tanook Specialist combo for a bunch of pings. They had the removal for our Exiler anyway, whichever one we killed. So Nebula Dragon re-entering the battlefield off of killing that would have hit us for 3, so I'd be at exactly 0 instead of -1. If I exiled Nebula Dragon instead, we are still dead that turn. Pretty gross stuff. Not the biggest beating in the world. It was a much closer game than it looked like in that last turn. We did get them down to 6. We only needed another 1 or 2 spells. We probably could have broken through, but we just drew a bit of a land clump at the wrong time there when we needed a bit more action to push in the final bit of damage. That'll be 1-1 and in game 3. Ooh, this hand is pretty nice when you're on the draw. So Sunstar Expansionist gives us the lander token only when our opponent has more lands than us. When you're on the draw, that makes this really easy to trigger if it's in your opening hand, because most of the time your opponent's going to hit their 3rd land drop on turn 3, which means you just use that as your turn 3 play before you play your land for turn, and you're going to get the lander token. So we start with the Virus Beetle here, waiting for them to play land 3 next turn, and then we drop the Expansionist and guarantee we get that value. And there you go. There's the Umbral Caller Zealot. Very, very nice. Sacrifice outlet, an instant speed way to sacrifice their creatures or artifacts for value. Ooh, drawing Servandum is pretty sick for the future. Okay, so our blade only works when we void during our end step, so our opponent sacrificing a land or token during their turn isn't going to do anything for us. Nor is them sacrificing other things to the Zealot for value. So that'll be important to keep in mind. There's a Caesarean Voidborn. Whenever this or another creature artifact control dies, they drain me for a life. Kind of scary with the tokens. The lander tokens. They did not hit land 4, which is kind of awkward for me, because I could Stalker the Expansionist later, but if they've missed a land drop this early, I doubt we're ever going to be behind them on lands from this point onward. So, let's see. I don't mind Expansionist trading off here. Would like it even better if I had a Vondom on board. So do we lead with that and then send in? Probably so. Probably just Vondom plus crack a lander. That's gonna equip the blade for free, and by equipping the blade for free, I have a Zerfondum with at least 4 power to trigger its death trigger. And Servandum's very strong where if they die or are put into exile, then I get the bonus. So we crack the lander right now because we want to trigger Void by the end of our turn anyway, so might as well get the 1 extra point of damage. But then we equip 2 Servandum, and now, even if our opponent exiles or destroys Servandum, we blow something up. So they are desperate for some mana here. They're just going to crack a lander token during their main phase. They're going to kill Servandum, but we are going to kill the something else. Oh, wait. Oh, no, they had the one removal spell that is minus. It's minus. Yeah, the only other minus removal spell, I think, is the common. That's -3, -0. That wouldn't have been enough to kill it. Wow, I think that's the only removal spell. Doesn't destroy it, doesn't exile it. It makes it so its power is less than 4 or greater, so it doesn't trigger. Rough. We're still in a pretty good spot this game, I think. But that's obviously a bummer for sure. Just play to the board here, I suppose. I guess I'm banishing here. Could sack the Voidborn in response, but I don't think I really care if they do. Because that'd mean that they will never get it back if they find a way to blow up Banishing Light, which I guess Rakdos probably doesn't have. We've seen some sets with some ways for black to blow up enchantments now. Still, red doesn't really get ways to do so. I don't think there's a way to blow up enchantments in black in this set, but there might be. You know, as efficient as this equipment has been, consistently re-equipping for free, I still feel down a card because I played an equipment. To where one of my cards is just really amplifying the others, it's not really doing anything itself. So if they just have enough removal to run me out of creatures, like, having this blade is going to really hurt. That's funny. Do these do anything together? No, you can't target them with themselves. Okay. It is up to 1. So I can still double spell for 2 extra damage and have access to the other Stalker out of exile. They can't Virus Beetle it away. Bring that one a little farther out of reach of the cheap removal. There's a 1 mana deal 2. If you void it, it's deal 3. That still doesn't kill the Stalker. There's also the 1 mana -2/2 that if they void it is minus whatever, the trajectory. So that way if they don't have void, they can't kill that Stalker. Okay, let's see. Think I re-equip? Well, no, if they blow this up at instant speed, I'm going to want to play this and exile something on their board, potentially. See, they blow this up at instant speed. They have a 3/2 blocker up. They trade there. That's fine. Then I get a free Void re-equip later. I guess there's not a lot of flash creatures. The only thing I can think of them doing here is killing this. In which case, they're gonna lose the Zealot anyway, because they'll have to block this to not die. Yeah, I think I move this. I think I actually do move this. Okay. Double removal is pretty bad for me. They actually might have punted there. If that's their only removal, then you wait for the re-equip and then blow up the Stalker, since that's the only way they could do it is if it's no longer equipped. Yeah, totally forgot about this card. Maybe the play was to just not even try to re-equip, just to play around this one. play around all of the like destroy anything removal by moving the equipment, but I play around specifically this one by not moving the equipment. They do have the bombard, they can go to 1, take the trade. They are going to surveil their vehicle away, their spacecraft away, and then take the trade. They're looking for something off the top here. Play a land and pass. Here is a threat that kills you in 1 shot, whether or not you kill it. If they kill it, then we can have a 4 power creature on the ground, and if they don't kill it, we have a 5 power creature in the sky. Well, exile does work. This gives them less time to draw removal. The problem with this is that if they drew a creature, by just keeping that in exile, I can make it so they just can't play that, but now, if it was a creature, they can. It's like, okay, they have exactly 1 draw step to hit removal. It was the draw that already happened. Welcome to the Flood Zone, everybody. Both on like 10 lands now. See who draws a spell first. They've probably drawn a removal spell by now, but they have not drawn any creatures at least. This is definitely hitting a land out of their hand, but every creature is a lethal threat thanks to our blade, so don't hate the draw. Oh my god, they hit 3 spells in a row. It's 2 instants and a creature were their draws. Because again, if one of those was a land, they would have discarded that right there. Oh, so one of the creatures was Nebula Dragon, which is removal as well. At least we grav kill that, so I'm not under much life total pressure. Alright, another lethal threat. Yet another removal spell. Keep this lander token to be able to trigger Void, or I can thin 1 land out of the deck. Do I have anything in the deck that still cares about Void? I have 1 Decode Transmissions that would make my opponent lose 2 if I Void. That's the only card in the whole deck that cares about it at this point. I think I just thin the deck and crack this. Technically the Blade cares too, but I have infinite mana to equip that. The Void on that one is irrelevant. Uh-oh, a lifelinker on the ground if they have more removal. Okay, there's a discard spell. Check out my bonus land, and there's the concession. Nothing to deal with a flyer. Very close game. We just stood there drawing a bunch of lands in the end game, but still get there in the end, thankfully, because our opponent drew a decent amount of lands as well. And the discard spell also quite a bad draw in that top deck war. We are now 2-1 heading into game 4. We have won twice as many games as we've lost, but I haven't loved the wins either. I've felt kind of behind in a lot of these games, even the wins, just ending up in top deck war style situations. Our opponent's having really good stabilizing 2-for-1s. That dragon thing, Nebula Dragon, very scary. I don't know how well positioned this archetype is in the set, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because it feels like even the wins have been sketchy. But we'll see. Probably overhating. This is another game where we have Expansionist on the draw, which is quite nice. Playing against blue-red. Fellow aggro player, I see. Oh, Jesus, what is this rare? Whenever they cast an artifact, they get a 1/1 flyer. It can only block other flyers, but that's so very strong. So I need to grav kill that as soon as I can, and because I'm on the draw, I can't kill it until I've already gotten at least one flyer out of it. Awkward. Yep, there it is. That's a pretty sick combo, too. They could just sack the token and draw a card. Get a +1/+1 counter. Wow, that's very good. That's huge value from the Emissary already. Opponent certainly hitting us with the Wombo. Well, this will be a pretty good turn. We shut off their most important card and have a 4-power blocker for the next one. Pass the turn with a ton of mana up. Interesting. Did Virus Beetle a bunch of stuff? Unravel Virus Beetle. Sure. That is just a straight up hard cast Beetle, so they don't draw a card off that or anything. That's fine. Go, Virus Beetle, go. Now go into exile, Virus Beetle. Go into exile. I want Virus Beetle back and then the equip. I don't think it matters how I order this, because I have to choose the target before this goes on the stack. Yeah. Still a bunch of instants over there. Got rid of a bounce spell, counter spell. It's probably going to be another counter spell. Let's go Banishing Light then, so I can crack the Lander token and equip Virus Beetle for blocks here. If I go for Stalker, they just counter the Stalker and I do nothing. Okay, there's not a counter. Let's be removal or something here. This is also better against removal. Banishing Light counters the better play, period. Regardless of what they've got there. Okay. 4 damage a turn is getting threatening enough. They might have to throw a removal spell at a Virus Beetle, which would be embarrassing. Let's see if they've got the counter spell for this one yet. They did not have it for the Banishing Light. And they do not have it for the boosters either, but this is a stronger creature, so we might finally pull out removal instead. That could be what's going on. Yeah. Bombard the 2/2 robot instead of the 1/1 Virus Beetle. Mechanozoa to stun the Virus Beetle. So now we shut off the Mechanozoa. Orbital Plunge, they get it back, stun somebody else. Three to equip. Could double equip. This is +4 power. Hit for 5 in the sky. Try to lethal them next turn. I think I want to hold a blocker up though. So I'm going to just do the flying and play another creature. This would only be 2 damage. I think that's still worth it. I think they can really afford to crack back here. Grab a land off the lander while they've got the mana up. Okay. Should put them to 1 here. I can't quite kill them. Some extra toughness back on the virus beetle. Need to deal an extra 5 out of nowhere to kill me. They're at 1 life. The problem with taking the block here is that it makes Nebula Dragon an out for them. Because then they play that, kill this, and they have the trade. But then I still end up with a creature left when the dust settles, while they don't have one. I don't know, I'm concerned about direct damage stuff. There's like double strike abilities and things. Oh my god, that's so bad for me. Stronum's pretty good for me though. Vigilance, Menace, Flying would be insane. But I just need to make sure it has 4 power first. Fully cast Codecracker Hound, looking for an out. And Cerebral Download is not gonna be it. Unless they have 1 mana removal for Servandum, they go land removal. Because now I have a Flying Menace threat. That's already lethal, let alone a Flying Menace threat plus another flyer. They need 3 flying blockers to survive another turn, and they just have the 1. So that should be 3-1 heading into game 5. Alright. That is 3-1 heading into game number 5. Right, here we are for game 5 on the draw. Opponent starts with Full Carver. Virus Beetle's pretty decent against that. 1/1 body to trade off, and we end up a card in that exchange. But our opponent's got 2-for-1s for days. Starfield Shepherd's going to get them 3 cards of value. They get a Plains, a 3/2 flyer, and a 1-mana creature off of the recast later. Luckily, we got our own value coming up. Now we have the Stalker to go with the Virus Beetle, or the Weftblade Enhancer. Insatiable Skittermaw. So that gets a +1/+1 counter if I take this trade now. I think the trade is still good. My problem with it is that I have the Stalker. So kind of want to just be annoying and rip away their hand here, keep them off of Shepherd mana at worst. Not under too much life total pressure, so I think I have time to toy around with this. Part of another land. All lands in there? Are they still going to hit 5 mana turn 5? That would be wild stuff. So this weakens the heavy. The Skittermaw gets bigger, sure, but I'm just going to kill that anyway. That is a horror, not an assassin. So I will be mana efficient and play to the board at the same time. Their last card was removal for Stalker. It's not even that bad. This doesn't have any enter effect. And it'll be summoning sick. Oh, Jesus. Double Starfield Shepherd is pretty good. They play into each other, getting the lands they need. Yeah, but then there's a Comet Crawler. So now they're going to play 2 different 3/2 flyers and draw a creature each time they cast one of them. Oh, boy. Our 2/1 flyer that dies into a creature is decent against that. For this board state, I need some way to stop the 3/4, which I guess could just be a removal spell right now. I think I just keep all these different 3 mana plays and just go for a grab kill. Because being able to double spell with all different combinations of these is going to be good. Okay, they don't have 1 mana creatures for this, think. Jeebus. It's just going to be getting planes. So these are basically just 3/2 flyers now. Perfect. Go Monoist to deal with that Shepherd. And Zealot to have more creatures on board for Enhancer. Plus a double spell play next turn. Banishing Light on Monoist is pretty bad for me. Good lord, alright. Double removal is extra bad. Yeah, I'm gonna have to just kill the flyer now, so... I'll double spell. This isn't even a good attack through the double spell, though. Oh, we get another +1/+1 counter. And top deck grab kill. Seems very strong. There's the next Shepherd. Double Shepherd was so good this game because the multiple virus beetles trying to rip away their lands, but the Shepherds just both getting the lands for the other Shepherds. They got 3 extra planes. Well, 4 now. We're the Masters of Flood. That is going to be 3-2 heading into game number 6. All right, here we are for game number 6. We are 3-2 right now, so a average record no matter what, a 50-50 record at worst. And That's a good thing, because this is not a good start. I don't think we can keep this. If I don't draw land, I don't do anything. And if I draw more white spells and no planes, it's very bad. If I immediately just top deck planes, it's a pretty decent hand, but it still doesn't do anything till turn 3, and we're on the draw. So if they're aggressive, they get a good chunk of pressure in before I do much. Yeah, I think we have to mulligan this, so we are going to be down a card this game, but Virus Beetles can try to rip that back in our favor. Can make them both 2/2s with the Enhancer, which is cute. Sure, we'll play towards that. Playing against a blue deck. Mono blue so far. That is a draw. Servandum. I think I have to lead with Virus Beetle. I don't want to trade Servandum off into this thing, and this they really want to be attacking with. To get their triggers, have it draw a card and discard a card. Now, if they play a Spacecraft here, they'll be able to keep tapping it each turn without putting it under any danger, any risk of dying. But if they don't play a Spacecraft, then they have to now use like removal on Virus Beetle, which is really bad for them. That wasn't so bad. A tap spell that draws them a card anyway. Okay, now that that's out of the way, and while they probably don't have a counter spell, I don't know yet. I guess I think there is a 1 and a blue counter unless you pay 2, but I think that's the only one they could have here. I'm just going to drop Servandum there and then hold up the Virus Beetle to block the Navigator. They are stuck off of their red, and we know it's red from their discard earlier to the Virus Beetle. Okay. Feels like more Virus Beetles are going to be exceptionally rude right now. Because it's just all spells in their hand. Stuck off their mana. Drop a 6-drop. Warping for a little bit extra damage here. It's pretty good. They have the bounce spell that gives them a Thopter for Servandum. They have found the red source. Probably just holding up like a Bombard here. Beckoner's not even that good against Bombard. Obviously we get them to kill Beckoner instead of Servandum, but it's not the craziest thing ever. I think we just double spell against that. Just make sure not to put a counter on Servandum, because they're just going to kill it here. If they just go land pass after hitting the red source. Guess we'll see. Yeah, that's 100% what it is. Holding the other Virus Beetle up because we want to stop them from doing any Navigator nonsense. If I attack both, then I think them taking 4 and counterattacking is pretty bad. So I want to make sure they can't do that. They got the Miminon Jellyfish Commander. +1/+1 counter for each artifact they play, and they put it wherever they want. Very solid card. Scary stuff. Oh boy. Draw an extra 2 cards every turn is huge. Oh no! Not after all the +1/+1 counters. That's a little embarrassing. So they hit for 6 instead of 5. They're not going to block either of these. Guess we Savior the Beckoner, maybe? For another swing. We get a Warp swing, and then we get the full ETB swing the turn after that. I could still Savior the Virus Beetle. The 3/3 body isn't doing much for me without the combat tricks, without the +2/+0 abilities. I just need some of my removal. We've got 7. We've drawn 0 removal spells this game, so we do have all 7 still in the deck. It's 5 removal spells and 2 of the removal creatures. Pretty much any one of our 7 removal spells wins this game. Because we'd kill the 5/5 and then have really free attacks this turn. They counterattack for what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or something. But this would have to chump at this point. Yeah. That was the perfect turn to draw removal. That would have been a mega kill. Instead, it is Savior the Beckoner. It's probably fully recast it instead of warp it here. So I can get another swing in, at least kill their Technician. And then I'm set up for a go wide kill next turn. Off of any removal I draw if they attack too aggressively. Which they are incentivized to do with the Vault Guard Trooper. They're very much incentivized to send both their flyers in. Well, I guess now I have the Savior to block the 1/1 flyer. Ooh. Galvanizing Saw Ship. So now they can station the Saw Ship instead of attacking. So they could attack with just the Jellyfish and tap the 1/1 flyer. That way they still get the draw 2, but then they're very dead to any removal. In fact, they're just dead on board. They take exactly 8. Okay, and we do hit the removal, so they are super, super dead. And that was a close game. If I didn't hit one of the removal spells, we were going to lose that game. So that was a pretty lucky draw, very necessary draw, but we hadn't drawn any removal up to that point. We had 7 in the deck, so I think that's just our luck finally catching up to us in a good way there. And that is 4-2, heading into game 7. Alright, here we are for game number 7. I'm not doing anything till turn 3, and all I'm doing is playing removal. And then I'm doing nothing till like turn 5. We're on the draw, though. We have both our colors. We have good interaction. This isn't what our deck wants to do, and I should potentially mulligan just for that. But I'm going to keep it. We have like 8 2-drops in this deck on the draw. If we hit one of those, this hand becomes very, very reasonable. That thing is terrifying on the play, because I can't kill it till turn 3. So we do take a 4 damage hit from it. Sadly, we didn't hit one of our 2-drops, but we did hit a 3-mana creature. Oh, jeez. Thoughtseize is really disgusting against us here. Take our 1 early play, and then we just have the 2 really late game cards. The top deck Monoist does mean we have something to do now, but now I have nothing to deal with the 4/3 body anymore. And that could just rip me apart really quick. I think when you have efficient enough removal in hand, it is... Oh. Disregard my whole train of thought. I'm fine. And then they don't have another threat to play? This is weird. That makes that decision extra strange. What is going on? You got the 7-mana board wipe or something? It's just removal spell from Beckoner here. If they have instant speed removal for either of these, they can just kill it when I warp it anyway. Okay, exile the flyer. Borrow the Beckoner and sacrifice it. Sure. That's actually pretty bad for me that it's the draw 2 sacrificer. I still feel like them getting rid of the 2/1 flyer was really weird, but I punted. I just top decked this Expansionist, and I instinctually played my land. I should have played Expansionist Stalker this turn. Okay, luckily the lander token doesn't really matter pretty much at all. So I can still just do the thing. When this has a relevant enter effect, though, I really would rather not Stalker it. Do I just have to play a 4/5 right now? My only creature big enough to block this without dying? I guess I just have to play a 4/5 and just get 1 counter. I think the play was to not punt and go Expansionist and like warp a counter onto it so it has 4 toughness. That was probably still the play even if I don't get the lander token there. But now I get one. Yay. Lander. Stalk the crawler. Start jamming 4 a turn. It's a 5-turn clock. That's something. Land now in case we hit our draw spell, which does exist. We jamming. Less concerned now because I'm also using a lander token. It'll be at 8 mana next turn, 9 off of playing land for turn. Now they can warp anything in, but they already had enough mana to just play anything anyway. A 4/1 defender. That is almost more annoying. I guess the 5 toughness on Tanook does make him the worst part of that deal. Surprised they kill that instead of the Stalker. Oh my god, they get to warp it with Chinook? Wow. Okay, that's a sick combo. That's just gonna demolish me. They turn that into 2 removal spells here, so now they kill the Stalker. That is very good. I mean, it's too late to like pick up Banishing Light and get rid of the 3/5 now. It already did its job. They still just cast the kill ship for 7 from exile. If I just pick up the Stalker now, they could like just attack with a 3/5. Man, I do not have a good play for this Exosuit Savior. Just cast it and pass. Yeah, they really got us with the Chinook combo there. I mean, they were already ahead with multiple draw spells this game. Transmissions draw 2, and then the Faithful draw 2, killing our own creature. It has felt like a lot of decks today have come to top deck wars, so I'm certainly higher on the transmissions than I was during the draft. A lot of recent sets, like Final Fantasy for sure, it has felt like pretty hard to run out of stuff to do in the late game because you have flashback and some other nonsense. But this set, like, at least this deck today, almost every single game in the end game, we're just sitting here waiting and drawing lands half the time and spells the other half, just like I'm just play one card at a time every other turn. Very traditional top deck wars in these end games, where card advantage can go pretty hard. Also, what a top deck again. Memorial Team Leader was the draw this turn. Buff the entire board for a massive, massive attack. I guess that didn't matter too much. Just take one more damage. Yeah, I'm in a really bad spot either way. But another creature is still certainly great. You are too late, my friend. If I blow this up, I chump there and technically live one more turn. But I don't have any outs here, so we are going to move on to the next draft. 4 and 3 will be how this deck's record goes. Very average record for what turned out to be a pretty average deck. I just don't feel this sort of strategy is highly favored in this set. Again, what I was talking about with these top deck wars situations and running out of gas, this stuff really does seem to happen in this format, to where some of the big greedy value piles, especially like green-based ones, can do a lot better at getting a ton of value in the late game and having huge plays when things get to a top deck war sort of position. Our hope and our plan was to do enough Virus Beetle nonsense early to put our opponent in a position where they had to top deck much earlier than we would. But things really didn't play out that way for us too often. Virus Beetle was a bit of an underperformer here. As much as we spammed it and triple cast it, we did all the synergies in the world for it, but we still kind of felt behind on cards the majority of the time here. I would say Decode Transmission's probably the biggest overperformer. That kind of card felt pretty important to this deck, but feels like we did not play a War of Attrition super well. I mean, most of our creatures are just like one-for-one good cards, but we have cards that like replace themselves when they die, like the Monoist, or give us some value when they die, like the Prospector, or potential mini 2-for-1s like Virus Beetles. It just didn't feel it really played out that way too much here. Yeah, I don't know, not in love with the archetype so far, but maybe I'm playing the wrong cards here. We are playing a little bit of everything. I think the Zealot, the Enhancer, the Beckoner style stuff did felt mostly filler overall. Even the Prospectors felt pretty filler for this deck. Hilderblade was fine. I don't hate that I ran it. I don't think I would have missed it a ton, but it was really good in those games with like Virus Beetles, making those relevant. Turning them into 4-power creatures was pretty huge. So did some really good stuff in some games, didn't do much in others. I think right on that borderline there. It was certainly fine in here, certainly playable in here. I think we only got to do the boosters thing once, so overall, great removal in the deck. That was all great. Our rare was great. The Virus Beetle shenanigans were probably the biggest underperformer, and outside of that, the fillery creatures I wanted to try out were all just pretty fillery overall. Didn't do a crazy amount of stuff, so it's mainly big picture stuff that I think we learned with this deck about just getting into a lot more top deck wars than we're used to, just running out of stuff to do in the late game. Each player running out of stuff to do pretty often. Does feel like that is very much a thing in Edge of Eternities. But 4 and 3, very reasonable, very respectable record. We will take it, grab our 1,400 gems, move on to the next draft. That is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in the recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.